When my husband passed away, the full weight of every financial decision fell on me alone, just like it does after divorce. And even with a few years of investing behind me, the shock and the negativity around it kept me frozen, and that meant that a portion of the cash that he left us was just sitting there, quietly shrinking due to inflation. Until I finally pulled myself out of that inaction mode and finally sorted things out to maximize the asset that he had left us. And so in this video, I'm sharing how you can make sure your divorce settlement is growing the way it should so that you can keep your lifestyle in retirement. Hi, I'm Aysha Paer. I'm a cross-border investment specialist in Zurich, Switzerland with 20 years in finance and a background that spans New York, Dubai, Amsterdam, Munich, and the UK. And on this channel, we dive into the financial questions that matter most to high-earning expats and anyone managing their finances across several countries. From the multiple encounters I have had with my clients who are divorced or going through a divorce, one of the first challenges of going through a divorce is that the whole process usually takes a long time to complete. So it's not like investment decisions can be made right away. You first have to sort out the details of who gets what. And that's not a simple process because there are so many financial and non-financial issues involved. Another issue is that, of course, in most divorce cases, there is tons of negativity present. The discussions on the division of assets, child support, alimony, all of that is very emotionally charged, which makes it difficult to keep an eye on what this means for your long-term financial situation, including how and when you will be able to retire. And clearly, everything gets a lot more complicated with multiple countries and jurisdictions, citizenships, etc. Often, it's not possible or not wise to continue with the same financial advisor or bank. In certain situations, they take the party of the spouse with the strongest finances and say goodbye to the other who has to start from scratch. And in many other cases, the newly divorcee person, usually a woman, doesn't feel very comfortable with the advice she receives from the old advisor or bank relationship manager. And if a lot of money is at play, which is often the case for a lot of my clients, then the newly divorced person with a sizable divorce settlement becomes suddenly a person of high interest for many financial institutions who go at great lengths to convince her or him, but more often than not, it's a her, to invest with them. And in these cases, often some things feels off. Then there is the aspect of not knowing how to best invest and manage your divorce settlement. And this is coupled with the same heavy feeling that now it's your responsibility to make the most of this money, even if you're afraid of doing something wrong and feel somewhat financially incompetent. And so what often ends up happening is that the newly divorcee freezes, sometimes for years, like ignoring the issue or pushing it to later for years. And I very unfortunately also partially experienced this after my husband passed away. Somehow I couldn't get myself to take prompt action, and so I completely understand that this is an issue for a lot of people, and because of that, a large part of what you have often remains uninvested. And here's the truth: when you do nothing, you're actually making a decision, keeping cash. And cash is probably one of the worst investment decisions you can make because it literally has a negative interest rate. What? That's right. Inflation is eating away at the value of your cash, and this literally works the same as having a negative interest on your money. Let's say you have some money uninvested 10 years at an average inflation rate of 2% per year. If you have 100,000, the value of that money would be reduced to 80,000, so a 20,000 loss in value. If you have 500,000, the value of that money over 10 years will go down by nearly 100,000 to 410,000. And if you have 2 million, then you would lose nearly 400,000 in value due to inflation over 10 years. And quite frankly, you can't afford that. Nobody can afford that. You need all the money you have to retire properly when the time comes. And even more, you need your money to work for you and grow over time if you want to retire well. And that especially the case if you've lived your life in different countries and or you may not have always worked full-time and contributed to a pension scheme here in Switzerland or abroad. That's why you need to understand how investing works. And if you want some help with that, I've got a free 2-hour training about investing for people who are interested in joining my full program about investing. You'll find the link in the description below this video. Another way to deal with a divorce settlement or otherwise managing and investing the money that you have post-divorce is to rely on the recommendations of friends and family. And this usually is a bad idea. That's because in most cases, they are not giving the best advice, even when they truly think they do. And even if your father or brother-in-law works at a bank, or if he usually it's a he, has been investing for many years. More often than not, the recommendations from friends and family is at best suboptimal because it doesn't rely on what has been proven to work by the research black and white. It's usually more based on either gut feeling and personal experience, and often the recommendations are old school, including high fee strategies like life insurance policies and the likes, or even worse, they are based on recommendations they got from someone at the bank or some kind of advisor who was in fact incentivized or brainwashed to have them invest a certain way. And in 99.9% of the cases, your family and friends don't have the knowledge required to give you recommendations that work for your multi-country situation if you are an expat here in Switzerland, or if you have assets located abroad, like if you own an apartment somewhere else, or if you otherwise have a multi-country situation. And so truthfully, the best way to deal with your money post-divorce is to invest it yourself. Or if you want someone to do it for you, at the very least, you need to understand what are the good products and the right investment strategies for your specific situation so that you can assess their recommendations. And for that, you need to educate yourself. It's a lot easier than you think when you know where to look, and check the description below for some more information on that. Which brings me to the other terrible way that a lot of people use to manage and invest their money post-divorce. Simply investing with their bank or another kind of traditional wealth management service. And the problem with that is quite simple. When you do that, your investment can't grow properly. Sometimes they don't grow at all. And that's due to the high fees that traditional banks, insurance companies, or pension-related companies charge for their services. But simply, they charge you high fees in order to pay for their fancy buildings, army of staff, and make a profit. But what happens is that they don't generate returns that are high enough or that are higher than if you were investing more simply by yourself with cheaper alternatives. And so your portfolio generates returns that are basically paid out to the bank in fees instead of being reinvested in your portfolio, which quite simply means that your portfolio can barely grow, or at least it grows a lot less than it would if you were investing by yourself in a simpler way. And the advisors at the bank or whoever you're talking to in a more classic kind of setup may be good and honest people, but the reality is that their job is to sell you, the bank, products, and in most cases, they have only been trained on the bank's investment offering, and they are not very knowledgeable about what else is out there. And even if they did, their job is to get you to invest in whatever they are suggesting so that the financial institution they work for or collaborate with can get paid. Another important aspect is that people at the bank, insurance, and even a tax advisor typically is only knowledgeable about the rules and tax implications in the countries where they operate. They don't understand cross-border situations and the different rules that apply if you move to another country. Actually, finding someone in the traditional sector who knows cross-border rules is pretty much mission impossible unless you're a very big fish ready to pay hundreds of thousands for cross-border recommendations. This is why it's imperative that you educate yourself on how best to invest, and specifically how best to do that with your specific constellation of countries, that you can, at a minimum, evaluate the suggestions that they make and make investment decisions that benefit you, not them. If you like this video, here's another one that you might enjoy. Top financial mistakes high earnings expats make in Switzerland. And if you want more tips, you can always subscribe to this channel. I plan to create more videos like this about the financial challenges that high earning expats and those otherwise living in a multi-country context face. And in the meantime, if you want to learn more about building a large portfolio as an expat in Switzerland, then click the link in the description below to learn more about my investment training and implementation program. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.